I'm very excited to be moderating this last panel of the day on the jobs and skills of the future. I saw Bijal and Kate kind of taking photos and looking at Joe's slides, so maybe we'll have to start off by some questions on entry-level work. This is Bijal Shah. She is the CEO of Guild, which helps Fortune 1000 companies provide education and upskilling benefits to their workforce. And this is Kate Barney. She is the Chief People Officer of Smartly, which is an AI platform for advertising. Please give it up for them. So I'd love to start off by kind of piggybacking off of Joe's presentation right now on entry-level work. Obviously, this has been something that's been a lot in the news. There's been a lot of research out of Stanford recently showing that maybe it has started to have an impact on hiring in certain areas like software engineering and customer service. How are you both thinking about this for your own companies, Guild and Smartly? I'll start with Bijal.
Yeah, I think what his data doesn't show is this is also true for folks coming out of high school, so not folks who are just entering or leaving college, but also for those individuals who are just leaving high school. All types of entry-level roles that have a high automation or augmentation component is important. And I think at Guild, we're spending a lot of time just for our own employees thinking about how do we make sure we have the right type of entry-level jobs? Should we go back to more rotational programs? Because one of the things that I think is really important is having context and breadth across the organization. And so how do we help people move across the business to better get context on different areas of the business so that they can be systems thinkers, dot connectors, things that I think are actually quite challenging for AI to do in the long run. But we are having intentional conversations about how to think about that.
You said something to me recently, Bijal, which was one of the reasons these entry-level jobs are so important is that a lot of them are like gateway jobs, and they help you develop pattern recognition. Can you talk a little bit about the value of pattern recognition for professionals and how you see them connecting to entry-level jobs?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what Joe said, or Professor Fuller said, that you can't have a 5-year-old if you don't have a 1-year, or you can't have, without having a 1-year-old. And when you think about in the workforce, what makes people productive, even just in society more broadly, it's learning, and learning by doing, and then learning by making mistakes. And so when you don't create the forum or the environment to allow people to develop critical thinking skills, to allow people to develop context in your setting, and you kind of jump ahead, it's like cheating the system. I think that the models might look like you reach a level of proficiency, but what actually ends up happening, which I think his charts show, are that you actually cap people out. There are a lot of folks who are talking about how AI lifts the bottom but doesn't raise the top. And I think that's totally true. And I think his models actually showed that as well, which is you need to have the ability to learn that yourself so that you can outperform what the top of what is capable looks like in the long run.
Kate, how are you thinking about this at Smartly? Like what the future of an entry-level job looks like at your company?
Well, we haven't changed the entry-level jobs right now because we think that they are coming in to teach us about AI. We think a lot about people who are in high school now are AI natives, and we are AI immigrants. And so for those of us who are learning about AI, it is not our native language. It is something we are all trying really hard and very quickly to be curious and enthusiastic about. And so at Smartly, we are an AI platform. And we were like, OK, we have this really amazing, super powerful AI product. Is every person in the company also embedded in AI in every operational job of what we're doing? And so we do 2 hours a week of AI sandboxing and playing and bringing in experts and have everybody talk. And we're doing AI hackathons because we want to make sure that we are also investing and giving people time to ask questions and bring themselves up to speed in terms of every role within the company, but especially for entry-level employees. They're often the most creative and the most native and fluent in AI tools because they've been playing with it probably their whole technological life. And so for us, it's almost like that idea of reverse mentoring when you look at the ability to learn from each other. So we still see a huge need for bringing in the most fluent. They have the AI skill set, and then we can help in the on-the-job training of like the practicalities of a skill at Smartly.
Bijal, you recently told me that Guild has created 2 entirely new roles because of AI that just didn't exist before. Can you tell us a little bit about what those 2 roles are?
Yeah, one of them is focused on how do you look across Guild in its totality and better understand how to redo workflows. And the reason why we came up with this role, it's effectively business operations, but imagine it as AI native. The concept here is that if you're working within specific departments inside of your organization, it's actually really hard to look at your own work and then say, here's how I'd retool this or do it differently. Also, you probably have artificial silos between your business lines because you have owners and you have individuals who are like, but this is how we do marketing. And so we asked a team who is not embedded in any one of those teams, but who can look across what every single team is doing to take a look across the business and say exactly what can I do or how would I retool this process so that it becomes AI native, and how would I redesign it in a way where I'm agnostic to which function owns it and how it's owned. And so that is one example of a job that we have inside the organization that didn't exist a while ago. The other, I would say 12 months ago, the other job that we have inside the organization that didn't exist a while ago is also if you think about an adopter curve of innovation inside of your own organization, you have employee adoption curves. You have the early adopters, which are people who are using this technology before you had even heard about it. Then you have the early majority, which is a set of people who have learned quickly from the early adopters, are more risk prone, and are excited to adopt that technology. Those individuals are actually the individuals who will drive adoption for your late majority. The people who might be a little more tentative or hesitant, you have the people who are never going to adopt. We're not focused on those individuals. It's hard to get them to drive behavior change. But there's the late majority, and your goal is to try and increase the speed at which that adoption curve happens. And so we also have roles that we asked early majority individuals to take on to be able to actually help them evangelize for the late majority taking on this technology. And they are much more effective at doing it than a CEO, than the rest of the executive team, than senior management, because people are looking for other people like them and seeing what it's like for them to be using that technology before they're willing to give it a try.
Yeah. Kate, have you seen any meaningful changes at Smartly when it comes to jobs because of AI?
We've done something similar, but we asked for volunteers from every function. So who was enthusiastic about it? Instead of bringing in a new role to focus on it, it was from each function, and they get together as our AI Tiger team. They have license to play with any cool tool they want. They're the ones who test and learn and then say the whole company should use a tool. And it's been really great because you see a lot of similarities across different functions that if they were building for within one function or just looking for like what is great for a revenue role or an HR role or sales ops, they might not realize how cross-functionally wonderful it can be. And so by bringing together all these technological enthusiasts from every department, it's created this big momentum across the company, and the CEO talks about it, the leaders talk about it, but really it is kind of building, and it's not a leadership or a level or any, it's just enthusiast and driving this and making it the top line topic of every conversation that we have of like, hey, in your performance this year, where did you use AI to superpower yourselves? So in 2026 planning, where is your team building AI in its structure plans and in its output? And so pushing that language forward, I think, has really been the major organizational change for us in making it just the thing that kind of is the red line, the red thread through the entire company.
That's great. Bijal, you mentioned this role that was focused on kind of reimagining workflows across the organization, that sometimes teams can be kind of siloed and kind of stuck in their own corners of the company. One thing we're really interested in at Charter is how AI might change kind of the scope and shape of jobs over time. We're hearing this argument more and more that AI will make jobs more generalist, less specialist, right? This is something that Donna Morris, the chief people officer at Walmart, told us. She kind of envisions jobs becoming a little more generalist because you'll be able to use AI to fill in your knowledge gaps. The areas that you're not as good, you can have AI kind of extend your abilities a little bit, and so jobs might become a little broader over time. I'm curious if you have a similar prediction for jobs, what you kind of make of this generalist versus specialist debate with AI.
I think you know where I fall on this spectrum. I, for a very short stint in my career, worked at a company called IDEO. They are a multidisciplinary design firm, and they bring a set of experts onto one team. You could be an architect, you could be a designer, you could be really good at monetization strategies. It depended. You could be a really great strategist. But they would bring you all together and you would go tackle a problem, a pretty meaty, hairy problem. And the beauty of it was that every single person had domain expertise, but when you were on that team, you were working together to figure out how to solve this problem, and you kind of parked your hat and you were focused on the problem. But you could look at it from the lens of something that you knew very deeply. And as we've talked about, I actually believe that concept is called a T-shaped individual. They have a lot of breadth, but they have depth in one specific area. And I believe that the world is moving to that more and more. And so I don't agree that there are just going to be generalists. I actually think the T-shaped individual is going to become more and more powerful in every organization. They have the ability to understand the context because they have the breadth, and they have the ability to go deep and understand what's actually happening because they have the specialty in one specific area. And when you think about solving problems and finding the best approach to solving problems, having context and breadth is really important. And I think that that will become the differentiator for organizations. So as we saw from Joe's data, the bottom will rise. Everyone will be on an equal playing field or a better playing field than maybe we are today. And so as a CEO or as a chief people officer or chief human resource officer, if you want to win in this next era, you need the best talent. And if everyone has access to the same tools and they're building generally off the same models, which there's 7 of them that everyone is building off of, that means your differentiator actually has to be something else. It's not that. And so I actually believe that the T is what you need to be looking for. And as you know, I feel very passionately about this topic.
So the deep part of the T is part of the differentiator. Each employee.
Yeah, and I think understanding every employee's T, the deep part of what it is and what they're coming in with and what they're bringing to the table. It could be a soft skill that they are very deep on. It could be a hard technical skill that they're very deep on, but I think that is going to be the differentiator.
Kate, we saw that historically computers complemented skills like judgment and decision making, it increased the value of these skills over time. I'm curious what skills you see as complementing AI, becoming more valuable because of AI.
I think the ability to contextualize will really be helped with AI, because within AI, it's like having the best researcher at your fingertips. And if you have that deep ability to contextualize and you've got critical thinking, then you're in an incredible position, because you could ask the AI to research and give you all of those points, and you can give it the right prompts to say, now give it to me without the bias. I don't want to hear the opinion of it. Just give me all the points so I can make my decision. So if you have deep critical thinking, or if you are a deep expert in something, you have incredible access to your primary resources, secondary resources that you can do research on with AI. And I think that I agree with Bijal. We need that deep and broad. And that's where it's very interesting where education is going to go. And with kids, being able to say, we talked about, we both have young kids, and their need to have an incredibly strong intellectual base, I think, is something that I really believe in, because we want them to be able to work with the computers, not be replaced by AI. And so if you understand the prompts and you understand how to collaborate with AI, then it can superpower you. But if you give away all of your agency or all of your power to the computer, well, then it's pretty boring, and then that's where you get the worry of AI taking over your jobs. But if you look at it and say, I'm an expert in this, and I really want a super researcher at my fingertips, or I need the most amazing chief of staff that I haven't been able to find, that can be my resource right here. So I think that AI can really be a great lift if you have the critical thinking ability and the ability to contextualize and make your own arguments yourself.
One of our panelists earlier, Parker Mitchell from Valence, said that increasingly he thinks knowledge workers will be doing a lot less of the production part of work and a lot more of the evaluation part of work. You have the model do something for you, comes back to you, does some work, you're like, okay, that's not good, go back and do it again. Oh, this thing's a mistake, I know that's not right. This is kind of getting back to your point about critical thinking. like, how are you thinking about developing that skill in workers at your company? Because that feels like a different set of skills than the I want you to actually perform the task versus I'm going to, have you evaluate how someone else did the task. It's kind of like writing versus editing.
Absolutely. I think that's where the investment in growth mindset comes in, and pushing for resilience and hiring and growth mindset, and investing in those soft skills, and investing in people time, investing in debate, in healthy debate, and asking people, how did you get there and the why? And I think one of the things we hear a lot about is the more entry-level workforce workers. I don't want to say any generation names, but like the newer workers keep asking, why should I do this? And what's the point? And why should I do it? And I think that that's actually a really healthy part of debate, and understanding the whys behind what we're building and what we're trying to achieve, and thinking of that as like growth mindset across the whole company is really important to foster, and work with great coaching programs and all of those soft skills that can level people's critical thinking ability.
Bijal, Walmart's CEO recently said that AI will change every job, and when it comes to employee training, he said his company's goal is to, quote, create the opportunity for everybody to make it to the other side, unquote. Obviously, this is kind of your bread and butter, but besides working with Guild, what can companies do to increase people's chances of making it to the other side?
Work with Guild. I think there's a few things. One is there is a great study that came out a few weeks ago that I think is critically important for this country to take on, which is math and reading levels in this country are at their lowest level they've ever been. That is a huge problem. I can talk your ear off about why math and reading comprehension are the foundation and backbone for everything this country needs to stay competitive. Finding opportunities and ways for your kids, for your early employees, for your existing employees to better enable them on those two specific skills, I think is wildly important. I also think there continues to be fear about what AI will do for individuals' jobs. I think there's two sides of the chart that Joe showed. One is what gets augmented or automated. Yes, you can see that for some roles there's a wider band, and for other roles there's a less wide band. If you looked out at the other side of his chart, healthcare and manufacturing, you can see that for frontline, mid-level, and mid-individual contributor jobs, those are not going away. And so the other thing you can think about is, what are the things inside of my organization that will continue to endure after this era or in spite of this era? And I think talking with your employees about, like, you're right that this thing might get augmented or automated, but here are all the other opportunities that will exist. They look pretty different than what you do today. They might be, if you're in a healthcare company, it might be that you transition from an administrative job into a clinical job, but we need to start having that conversation with our employees. If you are in a manufacturing job, you might go from managing the production line to managing the electrical box for that production line. And I think having that honest conversation with our employees is so critical, because I think a lot of people are super scared and we're not giving them something back, and people need hope.
Yeah.
There's a really fun article out right now in New York Magazine. If anybody loves New York Magazine, it's such a fun piece of New York. If you're in town, pick one up on your way back. But it's all about the AI with our kids. Like, it's the techno enthusiast guide for raising children in AI. It's fantastic. But it really talks a lot about building curiosity in kids and building curiosity in humans. And that's the way to keep pushing forward. Because if you're curious and you really build agency in kids and people in general, then they'll be curious about math. Well, why should I learn this? They'll be curious, as opposed to you throw your hands up and it's like, well, AI will take all of our jobs, and why should I learn math or any of these critical things? Because why bother? But if we can really focus on that curiosity of the whys and building agency, building ownership, and investing in that in schools and children, and then they will be self-motivated to build that foundational skill in math and reading.
Unfortunately, we are out of time, but I want to ask you both one more question, one-word answers.
Oh, no.
If you were, or 2 words, depending on, you'll see my question. If you were speaking to a high school senior today, what would you recommend they study?
Math.
Art history.
Art history. It's a 2-word answer.
You said I could have 2.
All right, thank you. Please give it up for Bijal and Kate.